الله 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 نور السماوات والأرض. Lantern of light evolving together.
Some people don't have dramatic childhood stories. They just have feelings they were never taught how to feel. Sometimes when you say that I'm fine on my own, I don't need to rely on anybody, I don't need emotional support. Yeah, it sounds great. Being fine on your own is often praised, but it can also come from not having enough consistent emotional support. You learn to rely on yourself because you had to, not necessarily because it was the healthiest option for you at that time. It's the kind of experience that's easy to overlook because nothing obviously looked wrong at that time. You were raised that way, you were provided for, maybe even cared about it in visible ways, but emotionally speaking, something didn't quite connect. No one really helped you name what you were feeling, sit with, or make sense of it. So, you learned to move past things very quickly, to not need too much, to keep parts of yourself quiet without even realizing it. So, yes, my dear viewers, once again, I would like to welcome you all on Lantern of Lights podcasts, where, as always, we bring to you these important, topics that connect to our mental health issues, that connect to the current of, what we're feeling, what we're experiencing, what we've been through during our childhood, and overall in general to bring awareness. I would like to welcome all of you on today's conversation. And of course, we'll be having our guest to join us on this narrative as we'll be exploring more on what's emotional neglect. I would like to welcome Brother Inayat Kanji on board with us. As you know, that he has always been, with us on these programs. We do have light-hearted, casual conversations, and we like to share our personal reflections as well. Assalamu alaikum. How are you? Hope you're well.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure and an honor to have you and to, take some good, what do you say, inspirations, I would say, or some good therapeutic methods or reflections, from your expertise as well. So today's topic is about emotional neglect. And, when we generally talk about emotional neglect, people question the fact that, is it just to do with physical neglect? Is it to do with abuse, or is it just to do with our mental health and our emotions? So I want to ask you, like, let's start off with this: that when we do speak about emotional neglect, what is it exactly? Like, how would you define emotional neglect?
Very interesting question. I was listening to your intro quite intently as well. I think you actually surmised it quite well, visually, at least for me, in that, like you mentioned, it's not always necessarily the extreme form that we might um, consider or describe as emotional neglect, but rather it is merely not paying attention to, let's say, a child's forming understanding of emotions. So as they're experiencing emotions for the first time, or through the period of their childhood, before they really have understanding, because we don't even have a critical or rational understanding as yet, it's just intense emotion. When a child's emotions are neglected, in the sense they're not noticed, not spoken about, not inquired about, not given understanding around, as you mentioned, the human being learns to just deal with it themselves in whatever protective manner that is. Could be quite a just simple survival mechanism they utilize, which ends up being
Yeah.
protection walls and other things. So, like you say, it's not always emotional neglect in the sense that not catering for one's needs in the sense of maybe food or love in the more obvious sense, not spending time with the kids. Sometimes you can spend lots of time with a child, but you're still emotionally neglecting them because you're ignoring their feelings,
Yeah. So,
right? You're providing in survival necessities, but you're not understanding the process of feelings yourself because you weren't taught. You were taught to neglect
yeah.
your feelings. So it is just if we break down the word neglect, is to not pay attention to. It's to avoid, to not understand. Like it's to not give notice to those feelings. And every human, as I say, as they form, are going through a
Yeah.
process of understanding what it is to be an emotional creature. And your thoughts are just an observation of that. So when you don't have understanding around it, often you end up being someone who is emotionally avoidant. And that's
Absolutely.
because it's been neglected. It's not been part of your emotional language, your emotional understanding, or your experience. And thus, it's very difficult then to teach the next generation. And thus, we perpetuate the cycle of emotional neglect.
Absolutely. I also want to add something over here that, most parents or people in general sometimes believe that they can just buy someone materialistically, in the sense that, I can buy you love, I can buy your feelings by providing you with sources of uh, things like objects. For example, when parents buy their children like expensive gadgets, or when they take them out to like these expensive trips or tours around the world, and when they're buying them these expensive branded clothes, I feel like some parents, they think that they've done their duty there, and that's it. Like, I'm doing so much, I'm providing my kids what's gonna lack in their lives. They're not going to lack anything, we're providing them anything. But deep down there are so many children, when they become these adults in their lives, they feel a lack. And when you ask them that, you've got everything that you ever wanted, right? But then they say that we didn't have that deep connection with our parents, that true pure essence of love and bonding was unfortunately not there. Why? Because probably because of the busy lifestyle, or probably because, as I did mention, when you just fill in the blanks, like I filled in the blanks with money, with materialism, with these kind of things. So one feels like they've done their part. But I sort of disagree with this. That I don't think it's enough sometimes. Even without providing them with so much, like if you just focus on quality over quantity, I feel like that is more important. What would you say on this?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think it's nuanced. It's nuanced. I definitely agree with your statement, quality over quantity, in the sense that, like I described, one can be around but not be present emotionally. There's many, as I say, descriptions we can give of it. But in essence, it is more nuanced because, like you mentioned, let's say I have a client I'm thinking of in this moment in time, fortunate to be wealthy because of their own hard work, didn't come from wealth, but now their children are experiencing that wealth, right? And because
Yeah.
the child in them that didn't receive, wasn't given certain things, and though they weren't rich as children, maybe they didn't learn the lesson of emotional value because their parents were just trying to survive in their economic state. And so they learned achievement is actually the validation tool. That's what makes me feel enough. So they're very highly functional as a family, very driven, and provide through that wealth then. So provide lots of things for the children through that. And at first, it is all an act of love, right? I go to work, I toil hard to give to my family. So I can't
Yeah.
look at it as always an act of dismissiveness that, oh, here's some
Yeah.
money, there's some love. Sometimes it's done from a genuine, obviously, we have the other narrative too. Some people
Yes,
who,
yes.
but like I say, if we
Who are really
really try
working
and,
hard. Absolutely. There are people who are really working hard just, to get that money to make their children happy. Absolutely. Yes.
but the lesson in it, what we're trying to
Yeah.
get at is whether
Yeah.
at one side of the spectrum where they're quite aware that they're avoiding, and their workaholism or providing through materialism as a form or language of love is also now their escape
Yeah.
from family duty, in terms of, well, let's not even use the word duty because it seems too chore-like, right? From the desire to want to be with your family,
Yes.
that which you created, right? We're human beings, not human doings. Just to be with your kids. Initially, they don't need much. When you first look at a child when they're born, what are their actual needs beyond survival? It's just time to learn from the elder, to have guidance, be it in play or
Absolutely.
education. So when you, like you say, you have a family where the young person is now lacking emotional sustenance, connectivity, they feel depressed, they can't find happiness, they're dopamine addicts because they've had the carrot and stick for most of their life. You do this, you get this. If you do this, you get this. Or as I say, they've been modeled it through their parent, even if they haven't been taught that lesson of achievement. They've just been given everything, but they've
Yeah.
been modeled by the parent that that's why I'm great to you, because I can give you everything. It's the
I've
language
seen this.
of love
It's the
that
language.
we're providing. It's still about love. It's
Yeah.
just about how do you fill the void. And then when you
Exactly.
realize that is not emotional sustenance, where do you go? Because if the world is a playground of feeling, if you only get it from one source, consumption, eventually, like all things, like eating sweets all day, it gets boring, right? There's not enough feeling within it. It's nice. Everyone likes a gift. But if that's your
Yeah.
only language of love, eventually it will be exhausted, tired, and won't achieve that which you initially set out to achieve with it.
Absolutely. Have you even noticed this happens a lot? Like this love language sometimes turns into emotional blackmails. For instance, as you said, I've done so much for you. I work hard for you. I bring money for you. I'm going out, working day and night, toiling, everything. And at the end of the day, I'm not getting back the results from you that the ones that I have high expectations of from you. Do you know like what it turns into, like a give and take sort of business, like a transactional sort of thing. So
Mhm.
every time you make your child feel that, I'm doing so much, so I also should deserve something back in return. What would you say about that?
Hmm. So again, it's a very nuanced question, much to unpick. Um, it's multifaceted. So individuals like that often are outcome driven. Again, because of the language of love they were taught. So whilst I don't agree with the methodology, the behavior, or the action, because I don't agree that actually brings about the best results for the human, I try to
Yeah.
understand why the person's doing it as opposed to judging it entirely. Otherwise, I won't get a true understanding of it, right? It'll just be a view from afar. But to live within it, to understand it emotionally, why they're doing it, like I say, it's often what we are taught, what was modeled to us. And when you're
Yes.
outcome driven, you're not about the journey. You're not about the process. You just want, I've done this, so you give me this. That's why we talk about the language of a transaction. But
Yeah.
really what we're saying within that, like I say, I exchange my time. I've been taught that this is how you achieve happiness. I've worked, I've provided. It's all about expectation and then disappointment as well, because you're now
Yes.
outcome driven. And therefore you project like a possession. I done this for you. I done this for you. I gave you this. When really no one asked. As a child, I didn't ask you to necessarily do X, Y, and Z. I'm learning from you. So it's quite
Absolutely.
strange and circular, right? Because I
Yeah.
understand it from a parental aspect. I toil, I exchange time, I work hard, I do all of this for you, and I give this. But equally, like I say, it's because I didn't understand truly what a person needed, a human needed, because I
Yeah.
didn't know what I needed, right? And now we're getting mad
Yes.
at the self, really, because it hasn't
Yeah.
brought about the outcome we wanted, because we were outcome driven. We didn't look at the leaves along the journey, the emotions. We just were looking at the mountain at the end. So it's an interesting one. It's very nuanced, but I understand the points we make within this on a surface level of communication, right? Because it is
Right.
frustrating. And I've been through the
Yes.
process as a human, right? And as a child. But I've also understood my parents and my culture and the survival nature of the previous generation who migrated economically or for some other reasons. So
Yeah.
it's interesting to observe and reflect upon my journey in itself, and then all the clients I work with, and see the similarities in everyone's journeys as human, wherever they've come from in the world. Because survival is a very interesting, mechanism within the human, and have we really outgrown it is based upon leaning into this emotional understanding, because otherwise you're just working in fight, flight, and freeze mode all the time. Your fear
Yeah.
and your anxiety and all these other things. You're not in the present. You're going from the past to the future. It's all a process of mindfulness, really. But like I say,
Absolutely.
we can equally just say somebody's projecting and making someone feel guilt or blaming them, or blackmailing them even. And it does feel like that within the language because they were taught like that too.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree to what you mentioned as well. And I believe that it takes quite some time to mature over the years. Like, obviously, if I was like back in my teen days, or back when I was maybe like, say, 12, 13 years old, if I was watching my parents working hard, and, they would come and, pass on these kind of phrases and comments. "Oh, we're working so hard, we're paying such high fees for your Cambridge exams or whatever." I would like question the fact that, okay, like, you are my parents, this is why you're there for me, you're supposed to be doing this. Why are you like blaming it on me, and I can't go do something? I mean, these are the kind of thoughts that probably I would have had. Sometimes I honestly did have also, but then
No,
now over the years, you know
and sorry
yeah.
to overlap you, but just because I'm feeling you, right? In that these were
Yeah.
my sentiments too. And this is how I came around this thinking of it being more balanced, because initially I saw it from one side only. I saw it from the child stance that
Yeah.
I didn't ask to be born into this circumstance. We maybe on a irfanic spiritual level, we can understand that our soul made an agreement with God, but I can't understand that as a kid, right?
Yeah.
As a child, I'm just seeing as you wanted to have kids, and I'm one of them. And in that process, then even because I'm maturing and learning ideas and looking at the world and observing, I'm seeing, let's say, children who are more challenged
Yeah.
mentally or physically. And I'm looking at their situation and saying, well, the parent doesn't have a choice there, do they? Because I'm able bodied in your mind, functional, am I a workhorse? That's why we expect more outcome out of me now. But in another circumstance, if we are to use horrible language, in some way defected, not
Yeah.
the functional, perfect ideal, the expectations that we dreamt of, that we now project onto the child.
Yeah.
Am I not? Am I not sufficient? Am I not worthy? Am I not enough? And thus,
Yeah.
yes, you feel the pressure from the parents, like you say, when the language is used as if it's blame. But again, if I then take the other side of the coin, I now understand also equally what parents go through in the process and the journey of provision, the sleepless night,
Yes.
the, doubling of their bills, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
The
That's why I
emotional
said, like,
stress.
one realizes over time. It takes some years once you reach a certain age. I think it varies for every person individually, and once you yourself are in their shoes, then you begin to realize, oh, that's quite a lot of work, and then you begin to realize a lot of things. Yeah.
But if you can hold both perspectives, you won't necessarily be the type of parent who just projects, because you'll remember what it was to be the child who had no choice, who had no power, who felt helpless, and thus was just looking for safety and security. And
Yeah.
if we lean upon
Absolutely.
that, then, like you say, when we are stressed, when we are tired, when it's too much work, we will express in a different way to that which is
Absolutely.
blaming, projecting, and a language of burden,
Yeah.
because that's what the child then feels, isn't it? So, yeah, it's a very interesting one, and it's very nuanced. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting to discuss.
Yeah. Also, there is actually a book that I want to share. It's very much related to our topic of what we're discussing, and I thought that I would like to share this book, and I would recommend it to all our viewers as well. It's called Emotional Neglect and the Adult in Therapy. So this book actually explores that what happens when emotional attunement, being seen, understood, and responded to at a deeper level, is inconsistent or absent during childhood, and not through obvious harm, but through subtle, what do you say, disconnection that leaves a lasting, what do you say, imprint, sorry, on an individual. And there were a couple of what do you say, like bulletin points that I was going through, that I caught actually from this book, like in just I'm just like summarizing that what this book actually had. It said that, number one, emotional neglect is about what didn't happen, not just what did. This actually reframes everything. Like, when we're like generally sitting, maybe it's like on a table, a family dinner, whatever, and everything feels so cozy, nice, like everything's going according to the routine and the plan. We're talking, exchanging, having a wonderful conversation, but probably um, I had something to say, or I had some emotions that I wanted to express, but they weren't expressed because of something. And then it remains like unsaid, like unsaid things, right? And then when, as like realize, when you like, it's like a movie, when you like replay those moments in your head, and you feel like, oh, like nobody, for example, maybe I had a bad day, and nobody even questioned me, nobody asked me like what happened today at school or college or university, or if I had like an argument with a friend or an uncle or auntie or relative or someone, and my mood's really like upset, but nobody even like felt that from me. Nobody felt my feelings, nobody understood my facial expressions, everybody was pretty normal about it, and you yourself as well didn't communicate about it because you thought that it was normal. Apparently you were not aware yourself about it. It was pinching you and your conscience, but then you weren't sure if you were supposed to speak about it to your parents or to your family members or anybody. So this was something that I that this book mentions. And then it says that it's easy to dismiss your experience when there is no clear event to point to, but the absence of emotional support, of being consistently understood or guided through your feelings, can leave a quiet but significant impact that follows you into adulthood. And so, what it's saying is that when emotions aren't mirrored, they become harder to recognize. If no one reflected your feelings back to you growing up, you may struggle to identify them now. You might feel something strongly, but not have the language for it, as you said. Or you might disconnect from it altogether. It's not that the emotions aren't there, it's that they were never fully acknowledged or developed. So, this is what the book said. Yeah,
Mm,
I just thought to share it. Yeah,
very interesting. There's many points that I wanted to interject because I was
yeah,
having mounds of thoughts, run and race through me based on feeling. Yes,
yeah,
emotional reactivity, the lack of it, or the impulsive nature of it. To know one's emotions,
yeah,
to be able to know all emotions so that I can meet somebody in their emotion. When I think about the work I do now, how do I aid humans? I follow their emotional wave because I know these emotions well, because I've sat within them, tried to understand them within myself. When I feel it, not hear it, think it, feel it, from an intuitive standpoint, through every expression of the other human being, because sometimes they're masking, sometimes they're trying not to show us. Because I now
yeah,
know it, I feel it, I'm able to meet them where they are and
absolutely.
help them out of it. We look at like, someone trying to get out of a trench or, a situation of sadness, right? The journey from the bottom of the pit to the top, from sadness to happiness.
Right.
And you can journey with them, hold their hand, not just carry them out of it, shake them out of their emotion, but rather journey with them, help them like a
Yeah,
coach, step by step. We'll do it together. But to do that, One has to feel safe in all their emotions, to know it's safe, to express, to feel, to know. I've had families who are full of laughter, not bad people, not emotionally abusive, but they laugh everything off. And
Yeah,
thus the child doesn't know how to feel sadness. It's a
exactly. Yeah,
scary emotion.
it
And so they
is.
avoid. And then when somebody else is feeling vulnerable, they have no idea how to connect because they just
Yeah.
laugh their way through it, or they just pull up their socks, whatever it was you were taught through model
Mhm.
behavior. So it's like I say, like all of these questions, they're not black and white, they're very nuanced, but there's learning within them that, again, as we are taught, to know your emotions is to know God because you know the creature you are that's come from that creation. That creation isn't. And thus you'll know when your child is experiencing something, or a friend or a partner or anybody, any human being, it is because you were able to hold court, hold emotional space for them, meet them where they are. You didn't react impulsively because you're not attuned to your own feelings. You don't know what it is when you feel it, and thus you just throw it out, project it. You don't let it sit and understand the observation through the thought. Why am I feeling that? Do your own
Yeah.
little detective work on yourself, your own reflection. We're just impulsive. We throw out the emotion, throw it out to get rid of it because we don't know how to deal with it. That's one side of the scale. And then, like I say, you got the other side where we just sit in silence and ignore, or we laugh it off, or whatever it is. We divert the attention. Do you want a sweet? You want to play something? You want to do something? Let's divert
Yeah.
it. Right. So, in
I-
both senses, we just don't get to learn what it is to feel safe in all the emotions, from anger, frustration, sadness, disappointment, loneliness to joy and everything other.
Right.
I've had some families, if I can just finish on this and land on this, I've had some families who don't show enough joy. So again, they're very emotionally present in other senses, arguably. It's not like they can't sit with their kids when they're sad, but because they themselves are not the kind of human beings who bounce around with any joy, the
Yeah.
children feel like this flat line of emotion. It's quite a cold household.
Yeah.
They
Very
understand the
cold.
morbid feelings. They understand the harder ones because those are almost unavoidable in some ways if someone's having a very traumatic experience. But strangely, when people are feeling safe, they never experience joy. How would that
Yeah.
impact someone? You wouldn't think it would impact them that much, but it does because you're not seeing the other side of the coin. You're not seeing
True.
the rainbow in its full colors. So you still lack something where you think, is this it? Is this all it is to be human? So it's very interesting, like I say, when I do the work that I do, to learn all these different scenarios, families, his story, the history of man, right? Or her story. So yeah, but yeah, I could say so much, but I'll open it back to you because what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I've also seen such households, and I've seen that, you literally feel like, oh, something's missing in this house. Like there's not that liveliness, you would say, and I don't know. It's the way people talk to each other. You just like pick on those feelings, and you also one feels like, okay, I should not like, uh, be very open in this. What do you say? Like in this space, or
Hmm.
maybe I'll be
Hmm.
judged, or maybe I'll be like, I don't know, misinterpreted of if I say something wrong even by
It's
mistake.
about
Yeah,
controlled expression, Sakina, isn't it? Sorry to get you
yeah,
to get just making me impassioned in my responses, because it's about controlled expression.
control. Yeah,
Some households, like I say, it's not necessarily about some of the more extremes one might have within their mind, but rather it's just being overly controlling about how you express.
true, true, absolutely. What do you think? Does this have a deeper effect, like this emotional neglect and these kind of controlled and pressured behaviors? Does it have a more deeper impact on women or men?
Hmm, interesting. I don't think I don't. I had to
I
think
think
about
it's
that one. I had to let that
yeah, because
resonate, simmer.
I don't know. I'm just asking this question because women can get
Great
easily
question.
emotional.
Great question.
Men can also be emotional, but they
Cool.
don't like on the spot react. They take it very silently, but it does affect them later on, perhaps. I don't know.
I'm laughing now to myself because
Really?
I've had to question it myself, my own theories, right?
Okay.
In practiced evidence, I've had to question my theories that I've accumulated over time through research and through
Yeah.
experience. Um, Look, I think at our essence, human beings are human beings, right? We have emotions within us that create thoughts, that create
Yeah.
behavior, and vice versa. Do we have different biological makeups, different nature nurture makeups? Arguably,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. All human beings are a process
Yeah.
of involvement in culture and ideas and society and everything other. And naturally, one is made for childbirth and rearing of a child to some degree, whereas the other is made in a different way in that we take the obvious biological things. If we took the strongest man and the strongest woman, the man would arguably be stronger, but it's still very nuanced. Because if you start saying one is more emotional than the other, you're going down a scary, scary path of it, of justifying, in my opinion, right?
Of
Because there's
justifying.
so
Yeah.
much nuance within it. You know,
Right.
I know athletic women who are much stronger than men who could achieve a
Yeah.
lot in the provisional sense of security and everything other, arguably, right? If they were
Yeah.
forced to do that due to circumstance or out of choice, they wanted to do that, right? So that questions the whole model. I know men who are amazing with their kids and the nurturing elements that you can argue,
Mm-hmm.
where have you got that from if you're not an emotional creature? Arguably,
Yeah.
some people think I'm like that, even though I don't have children of my own. That's my nature, right? So all of these things, right? Where have I got it from? I haven't learned it through being a dad. Where
Yeah.
have I got this from other than my connectivity to my own emotion?
Yeah.
So men,
It's true.
women,
I've seen the vice versa of this. I've literally seen like real like dads who have like, 3 children, 2 children, but like sometimes they're not present when with their kids. They're very much pretty absent. They're either on their phones scrolling, or they're playing their games, be it, I don't know, PS5, whatever, or they're out hanging out with their friends, and they're usually like, telling the kids, just go to your mommy, just go to your, you know, go play
but
with your
again,
other siblings. Yeah, yeah,
are these not
yeah.
just learned behaviors? That which was
Yeah.
modeled to me. Who do I blame? We talked about this before, even the traumatic senses on previous podcasts. Do I blame my
Mm,
grandfather, my great grandfather? Which one? Who's learned it first, chicken and egg, right? Because
yeah.
equally, some females, because of the world, survival, society, ideas, like I say, it's the download of ideas.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily something innate.
Yeah.
Two children are born, they both have to survive. If they have parents, they
Yeah.
have someone to provide, right? And then we go
Yeah.
from there. What was the nature of that? Who did the roles, right? But that varies, right? And some females have to lean into their masculine energy we talk about, right? Because this is how we
Yeah.
define it, how we describe it to communicate to each other, the expression of ideas. That a man traditionally, primarily in history, provided. That was the hunter-gatherer, right?
Yeah.
For the home they were making, the child they were rearing with the partner who was creating, right? At home. And it was very defined like that. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then once the child was off maturity, then they go out with the father and they go and toil in the world. If they were a female, they would learn the process, what it was to create at home and to create a child
Yeah.
and then nurture the child, right? Definitive. But then society asked for something else. We needed more. We went beyond those survival kind of narratives. Then we have education of ideas, and
Mm-hmm.
the human being learns that we can do everything.
Yeah.
So again, like we're going to lean into the archetypes of feminism and everything else when when someone tries to pigeonhole you into. For me, it's very nuanced.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to take on the role of being a nurturer, are they arguably going to be more emotionally connected? Maybe, if it's so definitive. Does that make sense? Where
Yeah.
the other person's like, I'm just the provider. And that's your teamwork. You'll have to figure that out. Because
Yes.
in my opinion, and I take it to this joke, which was shared with me the other day, which I spoke to a friend about today, strangely, at my business network. And I just find it funny that we're talking about it now.
Yeah.
When we say hands-on dad, imagine you said a hands-on mum. Society, that's confusing even. You expect
Yeah.
it, isn't it? You
No,
expect.
it's true. I,
What is a hands-on
you know,
mum other than a mum?
Exactly. I've seen these kind of examples where they say, like, okay, for example, if a mom drops her children to school, they would say, oh, I mean, I'm sorry, if a dad drops his kids to school, they would say, oh, the dad's doing a really good job. Like, he's making time for it. But like, if it's a mom doing it, then it's like, yeah, it's a mom duty. For example, if it's like if a mom is what do you say, washing dishes and cleaning the house, then it's like a normal thing. But when dads do it, oh, they deserve like a medal for it. Like, this is like something, wow, like, I don't know. So, do you get
And,
me?
this is what I
Yeah.
mean, in that
Yeah.
it's about the division of roles in a household, in the teamwork of nature nurture, right?
Yeah.
Um, and like I say, if one has to provide and works really hard, um, and the other is at home working really hard to nurture the child, that is a perfectly fine team arrangement, right?
Mm,
But the question is, when you are at home, are you able to emotionally connect? Even as the nature nurture at home, are you doing it from a
yeah.
place of burden and, like, feeling trapped? Or do you do it because you love it and you appreciate
Yeah.
your husband and what role he's playing? So you don't burden him, but just when he comes home, have an environment of safety for him to play with his kids and connect. It's all about emotional languages, because I've seen all models work really well if everyone's connected, harmonious, loving, and giving to each other. And there's none of this burdensome transactional language going off expectation and disappointment, because we've truly chose that. I chose that, right?
Yeah.
If I choose something other, that we're both working parents, then we have to pivot in our strategies of provision and time. But when we are with the children, are you capable of being emotionally connected in all senses? That's all it's
Very
about,
true.
really, being hands-on. Then it's just
That's it.
chopping up of roles, whether you do the feed, whether you wake up for kids, like whether you take them, do the school drops, like you do the sporting activities, do the homework. It's just transactions of time. But how you
Yeah.
operate emotionally within that, in the doing, is the most important thing, isn't it?
It
And that's
is
why we go back
absolutely.
full circle to quantity and quality. Some might not have as much quantity of time to give because they're working a lot of the time, but they give great quality, versus
Yeah.
the one who's at home all the time but is angry for some reason,
Yeah.
maybe resentful of the partner in the absence because they didn't
Yeah.
really discuss this teamwork. So it's interesting. All our relationships have like domino effects on each other when we do not understand the relationship with ourselves and what we've truly chosen.
Yeah. I think you've already like brought the fact about how our relationships also change over time with our spouses, with our partners, how our attachment styles change. uh Taking a lot of what do you say, I wouldn't say like lessons, but like taking a lot of examples, parables from our early years, early childhood years, and all of that. And then it, of course, it has an impact in your relationship, in whichever relationship you are in. Basically, it could even be like with your colleagues at work, it could be with your students, it could be with your teachers, whatever it is. Yeah. So it does have an effect. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely, because as I say, it's everything is an emotional language.
Yeah.
Everything we do, because
Absolutely.
emotions create thoughts, they create behavior. So how we're
So
taught
yes.
emotions is going to impact
Do you,
someone.
but then do you think that this sort of emotional neglect, uh if it has started like from early years, does it like contribute to anxiety and depression, or emotional numbness in the future in adults?
It does, unfortunately, and every individual is different, and thus we display different protection mechanisms. We learn different defenses for what we feel will keep us safe in a primal sense. But it's not always the greater thinking for ourselves, because it's just a survival mechanism. It's just to get out of
Yeah.
this situation. It's an escape route. In the greater sense, it stops to working, right? And
Hmm.
as you mentioned, you have different variations. So some people are extremely reactive, others are numb. I like the analogy of like a kettle or a boiling pan.
Hmm. Yeah.
Some, they quickly go to
Like
100
some,
and boil, right? And they
yeah,
get in a little alarm system, which then triggers them to go right and let it all out, like
yeah,
anger does.
yeah,
But then they calm, and then they keep repeating that process a lot of the time because they don't understand all the smaller emotions, and they just go
yeah.
up to anger. That's the only way to
Mm.
convey all the smaller ones, which they felt were unheard. And then there's another one who just ignores, doesn't even
Yeah,
know
they
the
just
pain's
ignore.
on, right? It's just
Yeah,
on
they don't
forever,
react.
right? And they
Yeah.
don't react. But then somehow it just
What happened?
boils over and everything goes everywhere,
Yeah, it erupts
right?
like a volcano.
And there's, just damage everywhere, mess everywhere, right? Because you can't contain it. Where do feelings go? They're either in or out. And then you have
Yeah.
those who are like a running tap of warm water. No,
Ah,
and it's interesting if we take these visuals for the self and try and understand it within our own emotional processes. What are we? But obviously, they're just parallel descriptions of some sort to help us. But if we really understand how we process emotion and express it, we might recognize some of ourselves within it. And as mentioned, numbness is another whole area and arena, because I find actually those who at least let it out to some degree in whatever format have more to, it's easier to work with. Let me just put it in simple language. It's easier to work with as a
okay.
coach. There's still
Okay.
expression there. There's still a spark. There's still fire,
Okay.
right? I think
I
of it
see.
when it's numb, like a flat line on a heart monitor.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
It's
like
like
I've
something's
literally got
wrong.
to get the defibrillators or whatever it's called, like, and like, I don't know, sometimes it's closer to suicidal ideations and those kind of feelings often,
Oh my god.
because I know we're laughing, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's true, because we know
I
people like this, right? I'm
yeah.
sure,
This was,
who are highly functioning to some degree, but they
I
have
can
no
imagine.
feeling, and maybe they can cope with it because they learnt it.
I know.
But then I know children of those people who are suffering for whatever
Really.
reason, because
Okay.
they now look at life like, is that it? And they
Oh,
can't express anything. So now they can't feel anything. And if you
oh
can't
gosh,
feel
that's bad.
anything, your thoughts
Yeah.
circle, right? They circle without no understanding where they're coming from. So you start getting a massive disconnect from mind and heart. You don't even know what feelings are now. You just hear thoughts, thoughts, and you have no idea where they're coming from. And it weighs you down to the point eventually, like, I don't want to do life. What's the point? If there's no joy, I don't feel sadness or joy. I feel nothing. I'm
Now that's
numb.
dangerous.
I'm already
Yeah,
dead.
that's
And that's why I take the flat line, right? Because through the work, I'm pivoting and chipping away different areas and trying to take different routes in. And, whereas,
yeah.
like I say, with somebody else, when I see the anger, I go to the emotion, work on the emotion, because they feel it at least. There's still
Yeah.
life there. Right? You get it. Now let's work our way back. How did the anger come about? But when you can't even acknowledge the anger, you're just like, life is just, that can be worrying. And that comes from all these different traits we've talked about today, in terms of how a parent or an elder or the person in guardianship, the person in the mentorship role, expresses emotion themselves, reacts to emotion themselves, understands their filter process. Do they have dams, or do they have a running stream? Can it be
Right.
diluted? Because if you have a running stream, also, we can think, Sakina, how do you dilute a running stream? You can't.
Yeah.
There's always more good emotion coming through that's going to, just cleanse any of the negative away to balance it. Whereas you
Yeah.
have dams, you have blockages, you have any of these other visuals, as I say, that you want to take from, it causes problems. It has a massive
Yeah.
impact on yourself and
I
others.
I yes, I now completely understand what you've as you described it. I was actually enjoying the use of your analogy and
Bless
your
you.
oxymoron, I guess. It was
I
making me laugh,
appreciate
but
it.
it's a serious topic, as you said. I
No,
mean,
but
what I felt,
and just the
it
caveat,
sounds
I know I'm
dangerous.
interjecting again, but I just
Yeah,
want to caveat to give you kindness, because I understand why you did it. Because, like you say,
yeah,
the humor
yeah,
and lightness, again, is the other side of the darkness. So there's nothing
yeah,
wrong
yeah,
in it. It's not you being
yeah,
insensitive. It's actually you maybe laughing at your own trauma. your own understandings of it, right? Taking some lightness in it. So please explain to me, why were you laughing? What was
Yeah.
it within you? What were you feeling?
No, I can't explain it. I think I was just enjoying the words. I don't know. I think it was
It's
just the way
beautiful.
you.
It's beautiful that it can do that for you. Because
It
as
really
I say,
made me laugh.
there's beauty in tragedy, right? Because they're all just
Yeah,
feelings and they all
it's
pass, right?
tragic.
So you can
And
get
then
good
when you
emotional
said
framing.
yeah, when you said that, how dangerous can it be with, those continuous thoughts in your head, and like just like being like a wall, basically. You can't, like, you're not reacting, you're not, giving any, I don't know, reaction. There's nothing coming out. So that's dangerous. Yes, that's pretty dangerous, and it leads to suicidal thoughts, as you said. So yeah, that's not good.
Because, like I
Yeah.
said, feelings are either in or out. I learned this from my professor as a statement. I'm sure it's been used before, but when I was qualifying to be a hypnotherapist, along with one of the other great statements that she had made as a title of her book, in you know, "Am I enough? I am enough." This phrasing,
Yeah.
what it boiled down to, that feeling of worthiness. Am I enough?
Man,
But also,
I
like I
believe.
say, feelings are either in or out as a process. They're not out. Where are they? You know? And we can even go down the other route of physical impact, the mind body connection. I was talking about it today, with business colleagues, like, as I was trying to explain to them, what is it that I do? People are always interested. What's a life coach? What's a life coach? It's the mind, body,
Yeah.
and soul connection, right? It's the process of living. It's understanding what it is to be a human vessel. It's just deeply understanding the self and then being able to translate that to others and seeing they connect with it. Is there any truth in what I'm experiencing as a human? Are we similar? And the more you do it with the more people, you start to get practice-based evidence. And you don't have to necessarily get the evidence-based practice. You can keep pivoting and moving. And in that journey, I've achieved a lot in understanding what it is to be human, because I'm not bound by any other previous system. I'm just exploring my journey and sharing it and seeing who else it
Mm.
resonates with. Is your path similar? Do you understand this? Did you see that on the journey? Can you see that
Mhm.
ahead? Can you see this now? So
Yeah.
yeah, and it's beautiful because we've learned through mentorship. If we think
Mhm.
about, really, we have stories and narratives of script, but we learn through mentorship. And thus, in this journey, like I say, I've really understood how important emotions are, and they're
Right.
energetic motions. And like I say, we are physical creatures, but we are spiritual in a physical casing. And we can't understand that our mind impacts everything. It's a frequency. It impacts
Mm.
ourselves, others, the environment. A thought is a manifestation. All these things we talk about, because everything is frequency on a physics level. There's vibrations going on. So you can mask it through language, but your body will be,
Mhm.
showing it, will be experiencing it. You know?
Yeah.
There's so many ways I can term this, but it's frequency, vibrations, feeling, and so yeah, can't escape it within us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think you've put it out there well, and of course, there's too much depth into this. There's a lot of dark psychology as well. I feel into it. I think that when one, like, really reflects on this topic, the deeper you go, the more you understand a lot of webs that tend to untangle themselves, and then you realize, oh, okay, this is what's happening. So yeah, we could go along forever on this topic, but
True.
I think because of also the time and everything, we would want to end towards the program. So I would like to wrap the show. I just want to ask you if, like, there are any, maybe a tip or two on, what can we do, like, especially during the early attunement years during our childhood. How can we as individuals, or how can we as parents, like, connect better with our children, for example, to avoid these kind of consequences in the next generation.
Great question.
Yeah.
I think everything comes back to understanding ourselves. I try to practice staying in the present. What does that mean? The future often is a prediction, can be a false evidence appearing real, and the past no longer exists, even in this moment. It's just gone, it's gone, it's gone. Every second it's
Yeah, it's
gone.
fun. Yeah,
So
true.
to stay present is to try and clear the self of previous emotions and thoughts, to not anticipate new emotions and thoughts, but rather to experience what I am experiencing now.
Yeah.
And in feeling that, in knowing it, sitting with it, we start to get better at recognizing it in others. Like we said, not throwing at others, but understanding why, asking ourselves why all the time. Why do I feel this way? Why do I feel this way? And trying to really get to the bottom, the root, deep sea dive our
Right.
own ocean of human emotion. And if you
Mm.
do that as a practice, a daily practice all the time, try and do your mindfulness to stay present, you'll see there's an abundance of signals and signs that you've been missing because you were living in the past and the future in your head, playing different movies.
Yeah.
So we just stay in the present, stay present with the feelings around us. We get better and better at this process of just aiding each other, allowing one to express, receiving their expression without your preemptive thought and expression, then
Absolutely.
responding to that. And there's a flow of connection. When we
Right.
bounce around in our head, we're not hearing each other. We're not listening to each other. We're not holding emotional space for each other. We're not present. And thus we feel disconnect. So it's actually back to the simple process of controlling thoughts and feelings. Or rather than control, understanding thoughts and feelings and being less reactive within that, but being controlled in our responses then, but in a sense of non-reactiveness, not compartmentalism, avoidance, or something other, but just not being reactive to them, letting them
Mm.
flow through us gently because we understand them, letting them out gently because we understand them like a stream. And that process
Right.
of love and communication is what just keeps things harmonious and healing, like a stream of expression and emotional energy. And thus, like I say, we all then understand that all emotions pass as waves and nobody sits within them or avoids them, but just allows the next moment to come through. And that art of letting go is actually the beauty. It's simple. So yeah, so that's what I would say. I hope that gives some understanding to the question you asked.
It
But yeah,
does.
these would be my tips. Ask yourself why, and don't
Yeah.
react to your own feelings.
Yeah. I love the point where you said that, just enjoy the moment, like just be in the present. I know that usually our minds are always running, they're always active. We're thinking about what happened in the past, what's going to happen in the future. We're like, I think I've personally created so many cinematic movies in my head that I wish people could have seen it. But like, yeah, we do expect a lot, and the reality is usually very different. So we should just be present, very much present. Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
time. And I really enjoyed today's discussion. It was very pragmatic. I hope you did as well.
I always do.
Thank you.
So I keep coming back.
So,
So I keep coming back. Thank you very much, Sakina. I much appreciate for your time, for the opportunity, for
thank
the
you.
trust. Because there's a trust in obviously expressing. I know we're going over time, but there's a trust in expressing because all of our ideas influence each other. So I hope when I do express it, that people know it's just my experience. But if it resonates with you, alhamdulillah, that's
Yeah.
amazing. So I appreciate your trust and allowing me to express.
Thank you so much, Brother Inayat, for joining us once again on today's program. And we did, of course, get into the depth of the topic. I hope all of you did enjoy today's conversation. Please do share this program with your family and friends. Do give us a thumbs up. And if you do have any feedback, please do share with us. This is your host, Sakina Habib, signing off. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.